Here we go. G'day. Welcome to another Outback Lens Podcast. Internet connection is terrible today. I just got to tell you that. The NBN's doing its job. Thanks very much, everyone. We need to get Elon Starlink in here in the old Darling Downs and see how that goes for us. But let me just start here. I've got a few things to run through this morning or this afternoon or tonight or whatever it is. Let me get back here. Here we go. Right. Hope you're all well. Hope you had a great week in the last couple of weeks. Been a bit light on content, as I said, by my little touch base last week. Sort of getting back into the swing of the year, hoping that we can get a bit more full on this year. So I thought I'd start the year with an interesting topic. If you've been following along on some of my posts this afternoon on the new Facebook page, the Outback Lens Podcast, or Outback Lens Podcast, same thing. Appreciate if you duck over there and give us a like, give us a share, give us a follow. Also have a new YouTube page. That YouTube page is dedicated for Outback Lens discussions. It'll be Outback Lens videos, content, a whole bunch of community stuff there. So I'd appreciate it if you jumped onto my own page finally. I got around to setting it up instead of borrowing Outback Optics' page. Again, thanks to our sponsors, Outback Optics, Australia's best value optics, as their little tagline says. If you're interested in any of their products, they've got a great range of optics at the moment, running into a few things like the Long Reach series, the Endeavour series, the Bushranger series, the Matilda series, and the Redback series. They've just launched very quietly. I haven't done a lot of sonic noise about it at the moment. Song and dance is what I was trying to say about it at the moment. Some scope mounts, as we discussed last week. Look out for them in store. They're not even on the Outback Optics website. When the guys sent me some to have a look at, I noticed I went looking for some information about them and some pictures, and they weren't up on the website yet. So I've reminded those guys to go and get it done. Yeah, at the moment, they're just so you know, on the rings, they're doing Weaver, Picatinny style 30mm medium and high, as well as your 3/8 dovetail low, medium, high in the 1 inch. So great for your rim fires. So yeah, great range of products. Thanks again to Outback Optics for sponsoring the channel, as they've done for the last 6 months since we kicked off. Great little Australian company, and I'm sure they'd be appreciative if you went and spoke to your local dealer about one of their great products. Now, so tonight's topic, thermal. No, sure, we haven't done a weather report. We need a weather report for today. So early 30s. For the last week or so in the Darling Downs. It's been good. We had a couple of really special days, not a cloud in the sky. Got to see a last bit of the planetary alignment was sort of still showing its head there. If you're into a bit of that stuff, it's all over the news for a few weeks. But yeah, it's been sort of very, I guess you'd say a little bit cooler in the last few days. Cool change back down to about 29, and we've dropped down into the fins and fins. And I saw some social media yesterday down Oberon Way, New South Wales, frost down there, late summer frost, a bit of an unusual thing for them. So I know there was a few farmers that took the brunt of some of those frosts on the crop that wasn't up yet. So again, thinking for those guys. Little bit around the town. No, there's nothing really that's singing out. It's been a little bit quiet, I think, around a lot of places. I think from talking to some dealers, from talking to some friends, it's been a little bit. I think everyone's a little bit lazier this year, getting back into the swing of the year. So, but that's it for a roundup. I didn't really have anything to go there, but so I'm just going through my notes here. Thermal basics. Again, to remind anyone who's a new follower of this channel, the idea is, so when it comes to optics, particularly on this Tuesday live stream, the Tuesday live stream is about giving you, the customer, some great information that's not necessarily full of technical detail, gives you some technical terms, some small explanations so that you're armed with the right information, so that when you go into store, you're not necessarily overwhelmed with terms and options and shapes and sizes. We're going to arm you with just enough information to make your choice a little bit simpler. And if you're someone who likes to deep dive a little bit further, our more long-form YouTube content that I've got planned for this year. As we discussed at the end of last year, a few more recorded videos, a few more how-tos. So this is a great place to start. The new YouTube channel will have all my backlog of 6 months worth of live streams updated onto our channel, our new channel. So you'll see that as things come forward. What we're trying to do again here with thermals is such a popular topic in the last, I'm going to say 2 years, but regardless of the time frame in our communities, rural communities, hunting communities, even just everyday people, there's so much talk about it, whether it's thermal security cameras, whether it's thermal handheld devices for drones because you want to take some interesting photos. There's been a lot of stuff on TV, particularly the news, about what's going on with thermals and so forth, and technology in the Ukraine conflict. There's lots there to, sorry, a bit of a frog in my throat tonight. So there's lots there to sort of unpack. So there's been quite a bit of conversation recently about it. So I thought, I know a fair bit about that product. I know enough to, as always, get into trouble, but I probably know enough to help the average Aussie person make some wiser decisions. So I'm going to scratch the surface because thermal is quite a big topic, and you can roll day-night optics or night vision or infrared, if you want to call it that. We're going to tonight just sort of start to lay out a bit of a roadmap towards understanding thermal a lot better. And then in the coming weeks, you're going to see a bit of a long-form content just posted up on YouTube. That'll have some more in-use stuff you'll see me using other products. So over the next few weeks, I want to take sort of 3-4 weeks on thermal to really sort of, today's going to be that high-level overview. We're going to scratch into a few more particular subtopics in a bit more detail over the next couple of weeks until, at the end of 3 or 4 weeks or whatever it happens to take, you'll be pretty well armed with some information about thermal. And while we're going, because of our great sponsors, Outback Optics, I'm going to throw in a few Outback Optics questions. They've asked me to try and scrape together some extra feedback this year. Again, they're looking to always supply the average Australian hunter-shooter optics user with some good value for money products. So we're going to have a few giveaways this year. Again, thanks to our sponsors. Always open to more sponsors from other brand if anyone's listening. A little bit of a shameless plug there, but you got to do it. It always helps grow not just the channel, but what it really does is give those companies a great opportunity to connect with you, the end user, and find out what works and what doesn't work and what maybe future products hold for you, the consumer. So that being said, we've garbed on for 10 minutes. Thermal basics. We're going to be at the whiteboard. I might have to use black actually. Thermal basics. I hope you can see this. YouTube will be in 4K, so you'll be able to go through this. Thermal basics, thermal terms. So when you open a thermal catalog, in my experience with dealing with many people at all levels in the market, I'm going to guess that better than 50% of the consumers have little understanding of what the technical terms are, how that affects their purchase, if they've made the right purchase for how they're using the product. So again, we're going to just duck through some of those things. And some of those things are pretty, I know for some people, some of these terms are going to be very computer language, are going to be very, very camera talk. It's very similar because we have to remember that a thermal sensor has no optic in it. And what I mean, it's not like your traditional glass optic where you're looking through a bunch of lenses. You have a video screen at one end. Literally, we're going to get the little mouse out here. So we have a lens here that faces the target. We have a sensor here, and it's a little tiny square box, by the way, and we'll get into that in a minute. We have a whole bunch of computer stuff here, probably some batteries. We'll go positive and negative for some batteries. We'll have a couple of dials or buttons. They'll say plus, minus potentially, or they'll have things like menu written on them. And then back here, we're going to have a small video screen. And then we're going to have normally a rubber eye cup. That's a rubber eye cup. And that's your lovely human blinkety eye. If you're like me, it's got a big forehead, so we'll do that. But and that's what you're going to look at here is a little, we'll draw a stick man in there. That's basically the small mechanical parts that go into a thermal optic. And as you can see here, there's not a multitude of lenses. You've got probably something like a geranium lens at the front. There's a lot of other new coatings that are coming out and a lot of forms of lenses at the front. This forms the focal length of the optic. So you'll see, again, just like rifle scopes, you'll see terms like 35 and you'll see FQ 50, things like that. For most brands, and again, we're not going to focus on any particular brand here, but for most brand, there's a sequence of numbers in the model. And starting from the very, very start here, those numbers, I'm going to say 90% of the time, if not 99% of the time, refer to the front lens and the focal length of that lens. So like rifle scopes, you can get 56 mil lenses, 50 lenses, 44 lenses, and so on and so on and so on. It's no different to here in thermals. Now, keep that in mind, because just often like rifle scopes, when you have certain size lenses, it can often come with a bigger price or a different price. So, but with this particular type of product, what you're going to find is that you'll quite often have what I'm going to say, some not necessarily the same features traded off as you would with a normal optic. So this is generally what a thermal optic's looking for. No lenses, a lot of computer stuff. So therefore, when you look through that, it's like playing a little video game in there. It's like a digital camera. It's like a phone camera. That's the way to think about this, and that's the way to think about that technology. So that's a brief overview of what makes up a thermal optic. This thermal sensor comes in a few different sizes. So I'd probably look to do things like, we'll probably do a little bit of interactivity here in a sec, and straight out ask, what's your experience with thermal optics? And I'll drop a comment there in a minute myself, so you can chat away. But what's your experience with thermal optics? Because I guarantee we're going to have a very broad range. We're going to have from people that are experts, that have high levels of equipment, that have a high level of knowledge, that use products very regularly. I bet there's more than 50% of the consumers out there, or people even watching this or watching someone else's podcast, that are searching online right now for where do I start. And a good thing that I like to do is look at some basic principles. And the basic principles with thermals, I didn't bring my little scrubber, sorry team. That's going to be a pain in the bum. I'm just going to scrub our little machine off here. So some of those basic principles are going to be things like detection range. Now, when you think about detection range, what pops into your mind? Drop us a comment there. What comes into your mind when it comes to detection range? Comes to mind for you when, all right, can't even spell detection. Yeah, so detection range is a very, very, what's the word I'm looking for there? Detection range is one of those things that, can, I guess, be misleading for a lot of people. And I'm going to show you a little slide here. It's from a very large thermal optic manufacturer called HIC Micro. You may have heard of them. A great company. They're one of the market leaders, have been for years. They've got about 5,000 employees, and they are one of the market leaders when it comes to technology. And it's one you'll see a lot. And we'll talk about some other models and brands to compare to here, but this is not a HIC Micro session by any means. It's just that some of their pamphlets and literature is really good for demonstration purposes. So I'm just going to share my screen here when I can remember how to do it. Share. And we're going to go to Micro. Yeah. All right. So I hope you're getting to see this. So some of these terms, this is a Falcon. It's been a very popular product over the last couple of years. The first generation was one of the industry-leading products in the market with a 20 millikelvin sensor. And there's one of those terminologies that I aim to brief you guys on and get you sorted. So we're just going to duck through some specifications here. So this is a handheld monocular product. And you can see in their new series, which has just been launched, FQ35 2.0, FQ50 2.0, and FQ50L 2.0. lot of numbers. Let's work that out. Again, and this is very similar across most brands. So F stands for Falcon because that's the model. Q in this particular case is how big the sensor is. And this is a conversation we're going to have about principles in a sec. The sensor in this one is one of the better sensors. So it's a Q. And you'll notice on the screen here, you'll see 35. 35 again refers to that objective lens focal length. And if you come across here, you'll see the very front of that little lens there jumps up to 50, and we can probably see it better here. You can see that's a fair bit larger. And then we jump up to this particular model now, FQ50. So F for Falcon, Q for the size sensor, which in this case is 645. L, and L with this company normally stands for laser rangefinder, which is a cool little product. And 2.0 happens to refer to the fact that it's the revised edition. So I'll just see here, you can see here it's got a little laser rangefinder in it. So straight away we know that that's that 50 model. There's some bunch of terms here, and these are the things I want to run through and just scrape the top, because we discussed on how that sensor works there and what makes up that thermal product. So now we need to dig in. We're looking at a brochure. We're trying to figure out what these basic thermal principles are, and we're going to call the first one at the top of the list image sensor, Vox uncooled focal plane arrays. So really, there's nothing there that you need to know, to be quite honest, because most sensors in handheld products are uncooled. That basically means if you were a veteran or in an army, or you're working in some kind of military space, you probably find that some of their large military equipment that have thermals on it, things that are mounted to big tripods, things that are mounted to certain types of aircraft, will actually have a cooling system, whether it be a large fan, some of it's got a liquid cooling mechanism. So we don't need to worry about that here, because just about every handheld device, or to my knowledge, is going to be, in this price point particularly, is going to be an uncooled sensor. Max resolution, that's a big one there for us. Max resolution is one of the key differences that you need to understand when we're talking about thermals. So let's scrape the surface on this one. So the resolution refers to the sensor, and it is honestly a square box, much like a digital camera or so forth. Sorry, my screen is turned off here, which is got my notes on it. Very handy. Then I cut. Oh, here we go. It's alive now. Sorry about that. So what we're talking about is 640 by 512. That's a 1 in case you know. So a pixel. You may have heard of that. A pixel is something that is out of that TV, computer, that camera language. And a pixels, for this point in conversation, is a tiny little dot that can display color and shape and movement and all those other things, for a real simplistic way. So this screen is made up, this sensor, I should say, of 640 tiny little pixels, and they're pixels, not sixes or O's. They're tiny little pixels, and they're 512 high. So that's how many little pieces of computer technology has got to absorb the information that lens that's here is pointing to. So the bush, that's the bush, it's pointing to the bush. And that's how much it's got to display you a great image. So that's the first part. Because if we look at some other products, they might have, and we're going to show you here, a smaller sensor, and that smaller sensor might be something like 388 by 2 something or other. And we can see that here if we go to length which is a older product being updated for a HIC Micro. I'm just going to flick between a couple of screens. The internet is dreadful tonight. I'm very sorry. I'll find the thing that says specifications here, specs. And we're looking, and there's plenty of these Lynxes out there. They've been around for, I'm going to say, 7 years or more now. This is the latest iteration that's just been updated earlier this year. And here we go. This is a good one. We're looking for, on that left-hand side, that word that says max resolution. And we see something that says 160 by 120. So again, 160 tiny little computer little dots there to absorb the information that it sees in the paddock and send it to the video screen for your eye. So you wonder, well, hey, what's the difference really to me? And this is what we're here to scratch on, these basic principles. One of the best ways I've ever seen to be able to explain to someone what the difference, I think that Lynx product there has a manufacturer's recommended retail of just under $600 for that very entry-level model, where that Falcon that we just looked at, I think was closer to a $4,000 or $5,000 product, if I can remember rightly. So let's just do this sum. If you were to get a calculator on your phone out, right, because it's that easy, you'll probably be able to see this potentially. I'm not sure, but we're going to figure it out. If we did 160 times 120, that equals 19,200. If we did 640, because that was how big the Falcon sensor was, 640 times 512 equals 327,680. That is something that everybody can see. That is one really big number versus one not so big number. So why is my $5,000 thermal versus that $600 thermal that I think I can afford today, why is one better than the other? On the first line that we can see there, we can automatically see that the higher spec unit, the $5,000 one versus the $600 one, has 300,000 tiny little dots versus 19,000 tiny little dots to show you a crystal clear image. So straight away, in this instance, more is better. The more dots you have, the clearer the definition, the more the sensor has to work with, and you don't get that really square boxy effect that looks like a computer game from 1981. So we really want to definitely go for the biggest resolution or the biggest sensor size that we can find for the budget that we have to spend. Have we done max resolution? Do we know what it is? Is everyone with me on that? Are we good? Have we figured it? Is everyone there? We figured it out. Lee, is everyone with me? I think we're all still there. All right. So we've done that. The next thing we're going to talk about here is going to be, any questions so far? Anyone singing out? Drop me a comment. I'm very sorry, the internet is terrible tonight. But we're going to soldier on here with a couple more principles. So let me get back to this. This is what I'm trying to show you. Great. So the next thing we can see down here is frame rate. It says 50 hertz there. 50 hertz frame rate. Think of your TV and you're watching the footy. It's State of Origin, it's AFL Grand Final, it's soccer, it's croquet, it's whatever you're looking at. You ever had one of these new modern flat screens and you're looking at something like a golf ball moving really quickly across the screen, my arm moving fairly quickly across the screen like that? Any of those things, if you've got a slow frame rate in your TV, you'll find that looks like it juts across the screen, or it moves really slowly and sort of jumps rather than the ball gets thrown or the golf ball gets hit and it's nice and smooth and you can follow it really clearly with your eye. When it starts to go a bit blurry, a bit square, that's generally the frame rate. And in my experience, I happened to buy a TV for the back shed one day, went to JB Hi-Fi or Harvey Norman, whatever it was, and I had this great deal on a 75 or 70-inch TV for the shed. It was like $650. Black Friday sale, I went, boom, done, in the shed up and watched the footy while I'm tinkering on the buggy. And I went down, got it in the shed, turned the first game of footy on, and it was almost unwatchable. And that is because it was such a massive TV. So it had a big wide sensor, if you like, for this sort of conversation, trying to make a correlation here. And the frame rate was very slow for that size TV. So it gave me that poor resolution of that fast moving product, because the frame rate's about how quick the computer technology in there can work. And 50 hertz in a big TV is very slow. You're generally looking for 100 hertz or better in modern TVs. For little small screens, 50 hertz has been quite common and quite standard. So I have no drama with a 50 hertz unit. So that really sort of explains what you're looking at there. You might see one that's got a 60 hertz screen. You might see one that's got something else. If it's not better than 50 hertz in this kind of thermal conversation for your little video screen at the back that hits your eye, you're probably going to find that that frame rate will make something moving across your screen also quite jumpy. But 50 hertz is more than good enough here. Pixel interval. It used to be called the pixel pitch. If you see something on these spec sheets that says pixel pitch, it's very similar to pixel interval. I like this description, this new revised description of pixel interval, and you'll see this really crazy number or upside down Russian looking spelling or something. What that actually refers to there, so 17, and a lot of people would say it's not a U, but it stands for micron. The same as you'd look at if you're in the bush and you've had anything to do with sheep, they always grade sheep's wool in microns. This is the same measurement. It's a very, very fine measurement. 17 versus 12. Which one's better? In this instance, the lower the number, the better. Again, we've got all my chook scratch here. We're just going to have a wipe of some of this. So remember, do your little math sums. The more little dots, the more pixels you have to work with, the better quality your resolution will be. And again, that's not sort of model specific. That's just physics. Or computer physics, if you want to call it that. So I need to find my bigger rubber. I'm so sorry, guys. So what we're talking about now is we know what a pixel is because it's all them little tiny dots we just spoke about. Now we're going to say we've got one pixel here, we've got another pixel there, and another pixel there, and another pixel there, and another pixel there. What the pixel interval refers to, or as it's called on many other pieces of literature, pixel pitch, it refers to how far these two pixels are spaced apart. And you say, why would that make a difference to me? Because the closer they are, meaning the smaller the number, for example, if this is 17, as an example of 17 micron, and we sort of go over here, and this is 12 micron, where there's, the width of this text, the gap between them, if that's 12, you will have a much better resolution and a much better image because everything's much closer together. It also means you can fit more pixels on the sensor. So you can start to see what picture we're building now. More closer gives you higher definition of the thing you're looking for rather than looking at that computer game. So that's what pixel pitch is, and a lot of people don't understand that. Response waveband is not something that we'll scratch on here. The next one here, though, we're going to scratch on is NETD, and again, it's a number that in the early part of this thermal conversation, going back, I'm going to say that 2, 3, 4 years ago, it was a number that not a lot of people knew much about. Only sort of the experts knew about it. The manufacturers weren't advertising much about it. But really what's been going on here is NETD has been in recent years, I'm going to say particularly 18 months, the thing that has really separated one supplier from another, one manufacturer from another manufacturer, and one product from a different product. And so there's been a bit of a technology race going in the last 2 years with thermal brands, and that's really been a lot to do with is the micron size of the sensors and the NETD number. The NETD stands for, hang on here, noise equivalent temperature differential. And the way I like to explain that, and you can see that HIC Micro here actually put a rating at where they measure this particular num, and they measure it at 25 degrees, and the F number, which we'll get in a minute, at 1.1. So 35 MK is, I'm going to definitely say, is older technology. Its refresh rate, its ability to measure small differences in heat. Basically, it's how sensitive each small pixel next to each other can sense the difference between heat. Now, that sounds a little bit gobbledygooky, but again, if we've got 2 pixels, 2 computer little dots that give you your image into your eye next to each other, it's its ability to be able to sense that tiny little bit of difference of heat. And what that does, it's the difference between being able to see the bristles on a ball's back or just seeing like a white heat mass that's got no clear edge, etc., etc. So this has become a really important part of separating products and manufacturers from each other, as I said. And what has happened in the last little while, like always, there's been a bit of marketing go on. And this is why I like where HIC Micro here has actually stated the temperature at which they've measured it and the f-stop of the lens that they've measured that 35 MK at. Because some manufacturers just say, yes, we're 35 MK, and they might measure it at 30 degrees, or they might measure it at 18 degrees, whatever their particular measurement is. It's much like last year we had a conversation about light transmission, and we discussed that there's a bit of marketing in it, and we discussed that some manufacturers say, I've got 99% light transmission in my normal optic, but 99%, the scope's full of glare, it's unusable, and they measure it in the red spectrum, where we need it measured in the blue-green spectrum because that's where our eyes see and that's where the low light is, rather than that red spectrum. So in the blue-green spectrum, that optic is 92% light transmission or 87%, whatever it happens to be. Much the same's gone on here in recent years, but now it's starting to straighten itself up with a lot of people starting to advertise where they measure it at. So then you get a clear comparison when you're going through these different spec sheets. So that's NETD. Look out for it. And I'm just going to duck back to Falcon here, the new one, Falcon 2.0 spec. Come on, specs work. Here we go. This is what we're looking at. So again, the same looking spec sheet as that links we were just looking at, but here you go. Still got 50 hertz refresh rate, as we just talked about. It has a pixel pitch that's all 12 microns, so nice and close together, which is great. Now here's the NETD number. Look at this. It's 15 MK. 15 MK is one of the new market leading sizes. So 20 MK for a lot of product is still ahead of a lot of other brands and manufacturers. 20 MK was sort of last year, if you want to call it. And there was a bit of a technology race to update models for all companies to get to the best NETD number they could. So here's the new flagship products for this year for the start of the year for HIC Micro, and they've got less than 15 MK written there. So they're really going to town on trying to get it out that we have a product that's going to give you really good definition, because their sensor can give you very good small, it can detect very small differences in heat. Focal length we sort of discussed on the way in. Focal length is about the lens size and how long that focal length is, and that's just like normal optics. It gives you similar advantages. But here, quite often, what happens is that difference in focal length will give you a longer detection range. And we're just about to get into this because this is a big tricky one. And when I say it's tricky, it's one that a lot of people fall into a trap of. So just finishing off on focal length, you can get different focal lengths, and the smaller the F number, just like a digital camera, the better it will be on its base magnification. Over the coming weeks, we'll have some picture differences and see if you can spot the difference. Here we go. Detection range, moving on. Again, this is a key point that when you're reading these spec sheets, you want to understand. Detection range, 1,800 meters versus 2,600 meters. Okay, you go, what's the difference there for me? Well, I'm going to actually roll back to Link 2.0 here, and we're going to go spec. And we're going to have a look here because I'm probably fine there'll be some difference. Here we go. This is better. Detection range, 750 meters for the LH15 on the left, 900 meters for LH19. LH25 has 1,200 meters, and a LH35, which is a newer product, is 1,800 meters. Now, if you look at many of the other specs, they're exactly the same. 20 MK for the NETD, the pixel interval or pixel pitch is 12 micron. The max resolution is, or the sensor size is 384 by 288, all the same across all those models. But if you have a look here, the detection range is all different, and that's due to that lens size, that focus lens at the front. So there's a couple things here to be aware of, and this is a really good one. And there is a little graph up here that is a really good thing because we're going to talk about a thing, and this is, again, in the basic terms. I don't need a cloth. If my wife's listening, could she bring me a microfiber cloth so I could wipe this whiteboard down with? If she's listening, we get rid of that too, because this is going to be ridiculous. All right. Sorry, excuse me, drink break. Right. So what we were talking about here is detection range. We're going to talk about a thing called DRI, detection, recognition, identification. This is one of the things when you're standing in store that you can read for yourself and very simply understand, will this work for me? And the way you do it is you find the spec sheet, and there's so many, I will say, compared to a lot of other types of products in the hunting space or camping space or outdoor space, the amount of literature for thermal products is really well out. There's a lot of pulsar information. There's a lot of knock picks or infrared. There's a lot of HIC micro information out, and they're all laid out in a similar fashion. So it's really good at the moment compared to, again, some other products. So we're in store. We're looking at these. It'll be a table just like this, and I'm going 750 meters. Oh, no, that's heaps for me. That is heaps. But you look at this one and go, what does 1,800 meters get me? Like, well, why am I at $3,000 now versus $1,699? I'd rather spend the $1,699, which most people would. But let's dive into what this 750 meter detection range actually is. Now, I've got some real life photos here somewhere, and I'm just about to share them in a tick. We're going to go up here first, and we're just going to look at this little graph because I'm sure there's a little graph here. NET, here it is. Here we go. So LH15, right here, it says detection range. Right at the end number is 750. You can see where this little deer is. It's 200 or thereabouts. And if you just duck your head down that graph there, we're at 1,800 versus 500 for the deer. And you start thinking, well, I've got a laser rangefinder that's a little bit like that. It can see out to so far a big shiny shed in the distance, but I struggle to get a tree at half that distance. Well, this is very similar in technology. So what tends to happen, you see a lot of marketing towards the big number at the end, the detection range, versus what an actual real animal size target could be. So the best way that I've ever heard it explained, and when I've done some training programs, is to halve the distance every time. Every time you move through a step, which I'll explain in a minute, detection, recognition, and identification. 150 is detection on the entry-level model, or it's 1,800. And what we're talking about detection, and bear with me for 1 second because I will fire up here an image for us. No, that's not what I'm looking for. Get away out of that one. This one. Sorry, still going. That one. No, not that one. All right. I promise. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen. And we're going to see my beautiful face. And we're going to share. Sorry, I didn't have all my images set up tonight. I was running a bit late as always. What are we going to share? Not any of that. I'm going to share this one. Here we go. So that, I can't make that much bigger for you, I don't think. I think I might be able to. Yeah, that probably works okay. So you can see there, that's a thermal image for all those people who haven't seen a thermal image before. That's a thermal image. It was about 33, 34 degrees, 11 o'clock at night, summertime, of course. And if you can see these little rocks over here, rangefindered out at over 1,200 meters. So if you can see, there's a tiny little black dot about wherever that hand is. If you can see it, it's just to the left of the crosshair, in the middle and slightly up. And there's a little dot there. That little dot on 1 power, 1 times magnification. So the base magnification, if I can remember, on that product was about 2.6, if I recall. I think this was an IAMing 612, if I remember rightly. And that particular little dot there is a kangaroo at 1,200 meters at night. So this is where detection range versus recognition and identification is really easy to spot. There's actually another roo just above the tree, just there, or just there, wherever you can see it. So that is a really great example of detection, recognition, and identification. So if we pop back and understand this, little table that we've been working on together, you'll see that, we'll just skip straight to the 1,800 meters because it's an easy one. 1,800 divided by 2 would get you your detection range. 1,800, for all those people like me that are terrible at maths, divided by 2 equals 900. So 900 meters, and you can see there they're saying about 500 on their rough little infographic there. I'm going to say that at around 900 meters, you're going to tell, and this is the word recognition. Recognition would be, is it a deer? Is it probably a horse? Is it a cow? That's what recognition is speaking to. So when you go back to your little cheapie or entry-level model, whatever you want to call it, we're going to go back to this Lynx S, I'm sorry. You see back here, that 250 at the Lynx LC06, as you can see there, that 250, if you divide that by 2, you're back down at 125 for one of that deer, cow, horse type size bit of game, somewhere in there, probably a big kangaroo. You're starting to talk, back there at that 125. And then if you halve that to get to the next stage called identification, that's when you're going to have the best chance to say, it's a buck, it's a doe, it's a boar, it's a bull, it's a cow, it's got 3 legs, it's got 1 horn missing. That at that point in time, you're going to be able to identify the target very clearly if you've got a good product. So bear with me. Detection 250. Halve that to get to recognition, 125. Halve that again to get to identification, sort of in that, what are you in? You're in that 65, 70, you're going to be around that to identify the target. So straight away I spent $600 on something with a standard lead lens, a torch or whatever. You could probably do it with a head torch. Any of these decent 1,000 lumen head torches or 500 lumen head torches would see 50 meters, no drama. So straight away, I spent $600 on something that I can do that's really only good for use in, a 3-acre paddock, 5-acre paddock. That's what some people want. Some people want, and again, drop a comment if you want to, if you use a thermal product and you want to tell me how you particularly use it, because this is why some people are happy to spend $600 and other people want to spend or need to spend $5,000 to have a product do what they need it to do. So, we're back in, we're sort of in that detection range conversation. Again, here I'm going to show you a little image. We sort of explained that last bit pretty quickly, so I'm just going to skip up to old mate Falcon 2.0, and we'll compare some other products. We'll go back to our we'll go overview. Internet's working great now. Here you go, 2,600 meters you can detect that tiny little dot of heat, and that's the way to think about it. That tiny little dot of heat has been detected. You saw from that kangaroo image, that tiny little dot of heat was 1,200 meters for that sensor, that ambient condition, because there's a whole bunch of environmentals that'll change what the picture looks like for you. So if we skip down here to this FQ, F for Falcon, Q because it's got a 645/12 sensor in it, 50 because it's got a 50 mil focal length, L because it's got a laser rangefinder, 2.0 because it's the latest generation, and we skip all the way down here, and we see that 2,600 meters for detection. If we then halve that to get recognition, and that's a bull, and I should say that's a cow, that's a horse, that's a camel, that's a deer. That's what we're talking about, identifying recognizing that species. So we halve that 2,600, you got 1,000, that's 1,300 meters round numbers. If you want to talk about actually going to that next step and go identification, okay, that's a buck, that's a doe, that's a, it's got missing one leg, oh geez, it's limping, all those kind of things that we'd normally do with under a really clear spotlight at night. You're starting to talk, dividing 1,300 by 2, 500, 150, you start to talk about that 600, 650, and there you go. Really easy maths. So for someone who actively wants to be able to identify a target at 600 because they're on flat country, and that flat country, they need to drive a long way and possibly bump the game or bump the pest before they can cull it, or it's so far away that they don't want to go across, that wheat paddock or that drainage, and they need to go round the block to be able to come back the other side to do that pest management or whatever they're out there doing. That person needs something that can do that. If someone's shooting rabbits on a nice bit of undulating ground where they can, hide behind a dirt pile and bump them off with subsonics all day and all night at 50 meters, well, you can probably get away with one of those little Lynx handhelds. And we're not specifically, again, talking about just the HIC Micro product here. We're just using their spec sheet as an example of, because all the technology and terminology, the basic principles that we're drilling down on here are very simple. So I'm just going to show you a couple of little images. You might have seen some social posts about it here. I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and we're just going to talk through. You probably get to see 3 images here, but you'll get to see screen. Is this under a window? All right, here we go. So I know for a fact that fox is about 120 meters from recollection because I got a video at the same time. We talk about detection, recognition, identification. That's a fox. I've got some videos. I'll try and edit them up to get them to share. I've got some videos there. That's a fox. I'm flicking through the different color palettes. This particular product is it's a hard rock. It's a hard rock, which is a pair of binoculars. It's a multi-spectrum binocular. That sounds there. Basically, it means it does day-night vision, or if you like, night vision and thermal. So one eye is thermal, the other eye is night vision, but it has one central video screen that will display that for you, and it's really, really, really cool. One of the great products that's been released in the last, I'm going to say 12 months or 2 years. probably 12 months. There's a couple of versions now in that particular HIC Micro. I know that Pulsar and Knockpick both do a version as well. But as you can see, this detection and recognition here, that was without doing a lot of focus, et cetera, et cetera. That's just scanning around, seeing what you can do. Again, that was early February, if I remember rightly. Summer, it was 11:15 p.m. You can see there. That's what we talk about. I know that's a fox. When you see that animal move, and these are some things we're going to scrape together in the next couple of weeks. We're going to talk about how sometimes that the identification part comes through movement, outline, as well as, what I mean by outline, I should say silhouette. It's not the traditional method of saying, I'm looking through a rifle scope or a pair of binoculars and look, it's got a white tip on its tail and a black nose and, it's slightly faded or it's got mange. This is not that kind of optic to be able to do that, particularly in the thermal sense. So we'll stop sharing that one. And that was a different color palette. Color palettes can really help you, and we're just going to a little sidetrack here. Color palettes can really help you in different ambient conditions, different environmentals, not included ambient, rain versus barometric pressure and humidity, because that can have an effect. We're going to show you here in a little minute. Here. I'll show you this one. Share screen while we're talking about window. This one, share. So this was just a great little. I was mucking around one evening at the coast. I'm at a cabin near the coast, and I can see the water. And literally pop that up to my eye, and you can see the sea mist right through here or through here. You can literally see the sea mist. You can literally see the wind moving that tree there because, like a camera, you've stopped it in motion. You're getting a little bit of reflection there. But that was quite thick and humid. And, when you walk out, that's so close to the beach and it's a bit humid and it grabs your skin in your face and you can feel that moisture and that salt on it. That's what that's like. So that's why you would need to change color palettes, play around with what works, play with your focus. Is there more mist here closer to me or further out? And if you've got a product with a focus, just like a pair of binoculars where you're focusing it or a side focus on a rifle scope, which brings me to my next point on that, is if you have the opportunity of buying a product with or without focus, my recommendation is always buy the focus. Focus is great. Again, it's just like a pair of binoculars or a rifle scope. If you can focus it close or far away, it can give you a wider range of scenarios for you to use. Quite often you'll see their more entry-level models will be a fixed focus, or if you like, for that sort of optic terminology, that rifle scope traditional terminology. But realistically, spending that little bit of extra money to get, like a LH15 in the HIC Micro product, for example, you can get it LH19 with the focus on the front of it versus some of the more entry like a LC06 or something like that doesn't have that focus because you're so close, because the detection, recognition, identification is so close. So, we've scraped against the key principles here. We're definitely looking at, those key principles. We've sort of skimmed across them. I hope you followed. We're talking about resolution. How big is the little computer sensor there to be able to absorb the information through the lens and tell you, and show you a really clear image. We touched on things like pixel pitch or pixel interval. How close are those pixels and what size are they? The pixels are really far away or they're really close together. That's going to give you a better image. The NETD, noise equivalent temperature differential. How does that help me? The lower the number, the better. The same with the pixel pitch or the pixel interval. The lower the number, the better. What that's doing is, again, the NETD, it's the sensors or the individual pixels' ability to sense the slightest amount of change in heat to give you a great representation and a clear outline. Some other numbers we talked about were like refresh rate. 50 hertz is about right for those small screens. We talked about DRI, detection, recognition, identification. Detection, tiny little dot way out in the distance. Can't tell what it is. That's detection. Recognition, is it a camel? Is it a horse? That's recognition. Identification, Is it a bull with one leg? Is it a deer with three spikes? That kind of thing. And remember, halve it each time as you go through the DRI. So there's some key things that we've just touched on here. Probably want to, I'm just going to start to sort of wrap that up so I don't get too deep into questions, throwing it to the floor. Is anyone there? Well, I haven't checked Facebook for a bit. Let's comment. If anyone's got some questions, let us know. I'm happy to, I'll respond to them through the week. Happy to, no drama. I haven't got much there, but a couple of things to think about for you guys. How do you use the product? Oh, I should say there's one thing that we haven't actually touched on, and it's here. I'm going to have to go back. We're going to have to share screen again. Share screen, we'll go hit micro. Okay. The other part here is the field of view and magnification. We're going to sort of talk about them together because they generally appear more often very close to each other on the catalog, and some people get them confused because there's a lot of numbers. We discussed this the other week, maybe 3 or 4 weeks before Christmas, about field of view and how it affects a rifle scope. It is exactly the same here. And I'll go back to this Lynx 2.0 again because I think it's got a good wide range. Excuse me, drink break. So it's got a good wide range of specs here. So if you have a look here, we're going to say field of view in degrees and at how many meters and how many meters that particularly is. So that are really important. And this is where I see people overlooking and buying the biggest and the best because it's going to work for them. Or they've got the money. Just give me the best one. I want the better one than my mate's got. That's fine. Happy for you to spend your money like that. However, bigger is not always better in this instance, particularly when you're talking about this kind of technology. Much like rifle scopes, and again, we're going to just keep going between because it's very similar and I think you'll grasp it better. We talked a couple of weeks ago about pig shooting at 40, 50 meters with a really low magnification rifle scope, a 1:4, 1:6, 1:10, something like that. So on the one side, you're going to get at 100 meters generally it's measured, you're going to get a really wide field of view at 1 times magnification. You're probably going to get, I can't even think, 30, 40, 50 meters more depending on your optic, right? Probably could even be closer to 100 off the top of my head. I'd have to just remember there. I'm too busy thinking about thermals here. But on the high part of that magnification, it's going to be nowhere near the same as 1. And that is directly proportional as you go up the magnifications. So with thermals, and we're going to definitely speak this way, again, it's the same as optics or very similar, but we're talking thermals here. If I have a 17.5 degree field of view by 13.1, that equals 30 meters times 23 meters at 100 meters. So what you want to think about is a nice little square box. I'll draw me a little square box here. A nice square box that's 30 meters high. 30 meters high. So if you go to the top model here, 35, at its base magnification, it's going to be 13 meters versus 30 meters. So its box is now this tiny little peephole. How's that going to work for you if you're shooting at 40 or 50 meters or you're trying to detect something at 40 or 50 meters? So here lies the argument. If you've got plenty of money and you want the biggest and the best and the beautiest and all the rest, more power to you. I love it. You'll want all the gizmos. Get into it. But you might find that because you hunt steep mountain country on the range, you're Gyra, somewhere in the Brisbane Valley and some of that steep country at Glen Innes, or down Victoria in the high country, in the snowy, you're at Bluff Knoll in WA. If you're somewhere down, on that kind of steep country with a lot of vertical stuff, having a very narrow field of view with only that small box there to look at, you're going to be struggling to see that game because that bit of game's going to be walking through the bush, particularly if you're not spotting the game because of thick scrub until it is 60 or 70 meters. Well, the problem's going to be, you're going to be too zoomed in because the base magnification, and we're going to see where it is here, just below it there is 3.3 to 26.4 versus right down this scale here, 1.4 to. So if I'm hunting mountain country all the time, I'm going to want the biggest, baddest sensor I can buy to give me the best resolution with the lowest NETD and the lowest pixel pitch interval, and I'm going to want the minimalist magnification I can get. And that might not be the biggest, baddest guy in that range, that's $6,000 or $8,000 or $9,000. It might be the model back, or it might be the model before that, and it's going to give you that better use case. Again, I keep coming back to the old golf. You know, do you take a putter to do a driving job? Do you take a driver to do a putting job? And if something's broken, that's all you got left, or you whatever it happens to be, real exceptional circumstances. So again, you might find yourself, depending on how you're using the country or where you're using it and how you're using the product, whether it's a rifle scope or whether it's a monocular, you'll probably find that in that case, you'd want the least amount of magnification you can get, which gives you the widest field of view, so you can see that little old piggy running through the scrub at close range. However, if I'm on flat country and I'm chasing wild dogs and they're 300 and 400 because they've been shot at and you can't get anywhere near them, you're upwind of them and they've winded you and you want to see where they're going, I'm probably going to be the opposite personally. I'm probably going to want something that's really dialed in with a really as big base magnification. We're here at 3.3, a really big base magnification. So it's going to be clearer at longer range. And, you know, we talked about that real narrow field of view. It's only 7.5 degrees by 5.7 degrees. So really narrow compared to that 17 that we just spoke about. And generally what happens, you'll find most people that are hunting different properties regularly, you might be a professional culler and you might get a call from a guy on a mountain one day and you might get a call from the guy in the flat country the next. I'd recommend finding something in the middle, and there's some great products here in the middle. You know, LH19, LH25. You'd probably nearly look at it at a percentage. I hunt, 60% more on the flat country than I do on the mountain. So you know what? I'll probably lean towards the 25 in this instance. If it was the other way around, 60-40, the 40, I'd probably go the LH15 in this particular model range. And you know what? You'd probably save yourself $500 and have a better experience with the device. Which brings me to the number one thing I want to leave you with. In store, one of the biggest things I hear of from dealers, I speak to friends, I speak to people that are in the know that help a lot of family and friends or colleagues that are getting into these products, is there's a little bit of a misconception, particularly the real new people into it, the really, really new people, because Hollywood has been talking about thermal since the late 80s. Schwarzenegger Predator, that movie, the great old action film, full of thermal in it. Seeing this big thing with high level of detail right in your face, seeing through brick walls, all these kind of things. Just remember that when it comes to thermal, it doesn't see through brick walls, but getting to use one before you purchase one is a really good idea. I know a lot of dealers that either have loan units, that have rent units, that have one of their personal ones that they'll loan, particularly if you're a local customer. I know there's services out there with rental services where people can rent a thermal for a weekend. I encourage you to do it. I encourage you to watch. I don't have a lot of great content I can share, but some friends of mine do. Shout out to those guys. And they have great YouTube channels. We're going to say Edge of the Outback, great channel. Nathan, great guy. He's got a lot of great content. We talk about thermal hunting down under, great content. Some great stuff there. Go and have a look at what those guys, they've got. Those guys are in the field all the time. They're going to have an infinitely great in the field use, how to use that product. And they've got some great little reviews and stuff. I'm really trying to give you enough information to break down these principles when you're given a catalog, because you've been whacked in the face by a lot of this terminology. I just want to give you this little touch, as we said, to break these components down. We'll scrape a bit deeper next week, but realistically tonight, I think we've had a great coverage of all the basics. The really key few points, I'm going to say there's 5 points there. Magnification, field of view, NETD, detection range, pixel interval, and then your image sensor resolution. They're the really key ones. And there's probably a couple of sub ones there that we'll start talking about next week. I'll give you the tip: image display at your eye at the other end. It's all great to have all the best stuff at the front, absorbing the information and having a great ability to be able to put it to your eye. But if the video display at the other end is, pardon me, too small or of low quality, you won't necessarily get use of that good extra image resolution. A couple of things, probably, we could probably go through these couple too, just to finish off. I knew it was going to be a bit of a longer one, which is cool. I'm happy with a bit of a longer one sometimes. It works. We're talking here about durability for Australian conditions. Durability, a lot of people have this question: I'm going to spend 7, 9, 12 grand. I'm going to spend 3 grand. It's a bit of a computer thing. What happens when I drop it? Many manufacturers have great warranties. Most of them are about 3 years. Some are a split, a 3-year on the whole product, including the housing for manufacturer's faults, with a 10-year image sensor warranty. Some are like that. Some have just better after-sales service than others. But durability-wise, you'll generally see it. I'm just trying to see here. I might see before I turn this off. It's normally measured in joules, which is basically measuring the recoil that it can handle, and I just can't quite see it there. But most of the time, generally, most products now, in my experience, are about 375 H&H recoil. So what would be considered an African cartridge for those people that don't know a lot about those bigger cartridges. So 375 H&H, there's plenty of stuff around, some of those Weatherby cartridges, 50 BMG. So a lot of recoil. I tend to find in my experience, it's not so much the recoil. If the product's doing its job properly, it tends to be the abuse. It can handle the recoil, it continue to do that. And when I mean abuse, Australians inherently, particularly blokes in the bush that, got to get it out and use it because it's wild dog eating sheep or cattle or whatever it is, and might be on the quad bike, it's come off the quad bike, it's smashed it. They handle a fair bit of that. But like anything, you might be just the unlucky one that smashes a lens, and that starts to come at cost then. But hey, durability, it handles most Australian conditions most of the time. We talk about battery. That's another thing that always comes up when you're looking to buy. Most products are running currently, and there is a little bit of a transition, but 18650 batteries, which is the lithium ion battery that's been out it's been very popular for 5 years. Most of your consumer electronics, drill batteries, if you smash them open, don't do that, by the way. Don't smash a drill battery open. Have a lithium ion battery in it, and it's probably a bunch of 18650 batteries. Stands for 18 millimeters round by 65 millimeters tall. Now, they're not always 65 millimeters tall or long. Quite often in the modern batteries, there'll be a safety chip in the top, which protects the battery from overcharging, etc., etc. And that's really important with lithium ion, because if anyone's seen the electric vehicle fires that have been getting around and electric scooter fires, generally there's a couple of reasons for that. Any lithium product will always go up pretty well like that. But a lot of the time it's from poor chargers and poor power supplies, and often in a combination of batteries that aren't protected. Most companies now that I know of don't either want to offer, or it's a special order, or don't stock or will not stock it and sell it, a non-protected 18650 battery, which is great for Australia because that will help limit some of the fires. However, you can still buy a lot of these batteries through eBay and they're quite cheap. If I'm a manufacturer of an optic, I'm going to make it so that standard 18650 batteries don't actually work in my device. And to note there, keep that in mind, because if you bought a product that needs the old type batteries, that'll be harder to find at a local level. You might need a bit of homework to get that sorted. I'm going to say Battery World, last time I checked, stock protected 18650 batteries most local outdoor stores, gun stores, hunting stores, camping stores, stock 18650s. You need to check the length because they'll be 66 millimeters to 67 millimeters. They'll be 70 millimeters in some instances. It'll all depend on how big that safety chip is at the top. So if your product takes 18650 batteries, which by the way, an 18650 battery for most of these products, I'm going to say outside the laser rangefinder products, if it's got one battery in it, you're probably going to look between, depending on the brand, shape, size, model, 4 to 6 hours. A lot of products you can do 8 hours on 2 batteries. There is some new battery sizes coming, 21,500 if I remember rightly. Yeah. So it's basically a little bit fatter, but a little bit shorter. Again, it's starting to come through, particularly as some devices need to get more compact. The 18650 has been a good solid battery. It's, in my opinion, the AA of the modern era. And the reason that is because so many products have a battery shell that's a big box, but there's just 30, 40, 50 of these 18650 batteries on the inside if you actually have a look. It's what a lot of batteries are made of. And it's great because what happens is if you have an old car battery that has 6 cells in it, 2.2 volts a cell generally, you have one of those cells go dead in your car battery, you can't start your car. If you've got 100 little tiny 18650 batteries this big in your car and you lose one, well, you can still got 99% of the battery power there and it'll start and go. So that's why I like multiple battery 50s have been around. It just doesn't allow you sometimes to get the unit as compact. Plenty of products out there getting 8 hours plus. Laser rangefinder products will depend on how much you keep smashing that rangefinder button. And if you've got it on continual ranging, so it just goes every 5 seconds, 3 seconds, whatever it happens to be. If we talk about, what else are we going to talk about? Just to try and tidy up some of these small ones, I had a list here for durability we did, battery performance we spoke about. We got environmentals and stuff we'll do next week. Here's probably something to think about, and I've sort of alluded to you already. How do you think a thermal product would add to your kit? And I'll share this, I'll make this a separate Facebook post and I'll share it out on both. I'll send it to the Outback Optics guys and get them to share it as well, just until we try and get some more people into the new Outback Lens Facebook page. But how do thermal products, or how would a thermal product, how would you use it? Where would you use it? What benefit would it be to you if you don't have it? Because I'd like to get a bit of an idea on what everyone's using. I know from facts of sales data that I've seen from some of the big companies what most sales are in the country at the moment. I know from talking to many guys at the counter, many dealers and other people I speak to, how they use it. And I think there's a few great products that really link traditional optics like an Outback optic, a traditional rifle scope with this new modern technology. And there's a good in between without having to go buy a full kit. Next week, we'll go through some other things like, do we have time? No. We should have probably started with it. We'll go through night vision or night-day optics next week because I'll actually start with that. I shared a post today with Hick Micro Alpex LRF 4K that I happen to have for a long time. And, it's only been out 12 or 18 months, but I got a great opportunity to use it. There's a great product at a great price point, and it's night vision or day-night, as a lot of people are trying to push through at the moment. So what product are you using if you're using a product? Don't care about the brand. Just say, I'm using a monocular, I'm using a rifle scope, I'm using, what are you using? I'd like to know. Let's start that conversation down the bottom. Also, keep our sponsor happy. What Outback Optics product are you using? Or what would you like to see over the next 12 months, 6 months from the Outback Optics crew? And again, I'll break this up in a few more questions through the weeks, maybe a poll, just do it a little bit off the cuff as I've got a bit of time after work. But we'll talk some environmentals next week with thermals. I've got a couple of bits of kit behind me there, both clear, no bolts in, by the way. I'm licensed by my relevant regulator, Facebook Boffins. I'll show you some platforms that I like to use for different scenarios, and we'll get into things like some mounting, but we'll get into environmentals and scrape a little bit more in some of these technical things next week. But I'm sorry to make this a long one, but I really think it's worth a long one because there's lots of talk, there's lots of sales, there's lots of info, there's lots of misinfo out there. So I'd like to just try and help you out along here. And, got any questions, as always, about anything, DRI, resolution, NETD, you name it, I'll do my best to answer it for you. Thanks so much for listening. Remember, please share, like, subscribe, Outback Lens Podcast on YouTube. I haven't got Instagram yet. Outback Lens Facebook page. I'd love you to like it as well. Again, trying to not borrow the Outback Optics Cruise gear because did you know, just so you know, if you don't get 100 as a page, I think you need 100 likes or 100 followers to be able to conduct a live stream. So that's why we finally broke out and did our own page, because I really need to get my own page going so that I don't have to hijack somebody else's page. So I'd really love your support to be able to do that. Look out for some giveaways. I'll start them probably next week, and we'll have a bit more yarn next week about some Outback Optics products that'll parallel with how most people, I think, are using thermal products, and a couple of products I'd recommend to go hand in hand, both being that, hey, this is the gear that I've got, or I can upgrade my old gear without necessarily spending that big money on a new bit of thermal, but still buying a little bit of thermal kit to increase your pest control odds. So thanks again, guys. Sorry we dragged it out a bit. It was a great talk. I'm glad you got to see some of it. I'll be posting a few more pictures through the week. I've shared a few already on Outback Lens's Facebook page. So again, appreciate it if you like, share, subscribe on that. That's it. Stay focused. I'm your host, JD, and look forward to talking to you next week. And